Hey folks, hope you're all safe and well. Thanks for taking the time to watch another episode of Little Boat Adventures. As you can see, we start off in this episode with just doing some hand sanding of around the deck hull joint, and that was just because it was a bit awkward to get into with the orbital sander, so we just did some hand sanding here, and that was in preparation of laying on some 410 fairing compound to even out the areas where we had kind of went too hard with the orbital sander. Following that, we would prepare to get the boat ready for some primer and eventually some painting. So Kelly's going ahead of me. I'm wiping down the surface of the boat, and I'm just going to mix up some 410 and follow behind her and start filling in the areas that need a bit of filling and fairing. I had ordered some plastic spreaders to better spread the fairing compound, but they hadn't came yet, and with only having a small weather window to get the fairing compound applied, I resorted to using some of the scrapers and whatever other utensils I could find with a straight edge. Not the most ideal thing to be using, but it worked until the plastic spreaders came at least anyway. You can see here Kelly, as she's going ahead, she's just marking out with a pencil some of the low spots, just to make it a bit easier for me following behind. Yeah. Do that bit, so just scoop a bit out of that onto, don't need loads, that's you. And scoop it into the middle of it. Yeah. That'll do. And then use the trowel then to just kind of go with the flow of the boat, so kind of make it a bit more like that. Expert level 20.
20?
Out of 100.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so what a wee bit of a flow in each direction, and then finish off with the curve of the boat is what I was trying to do. You know, so it kind of leaves a... Don't be scared to leave it a bit proud in the middle, because then you can sand it down and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, like I say, we'll probably have to go over it all again anyway, love, because I'm not an expert in this, so it's...
What expert level are you?
Out of 100?
Yeah.
5.
What expert?
Yeah. So I know me and Kelly were joking about our expert level there. Me and Kelly are experts in no way. This is very much new to us. and we're learning as we go and enjoying that process. So some people might have done it differently, but this is just how we did it. But after all the fern compound was applied and allowed to dry, it was time to start sanding. On the orbital sander I used a 120 grit sandpaper, and with the hand sanding I used between an 80 and a 120 grit. And I spent a lot of time on the bow trying to get the curvature just at the front there nice and smooth with some 120 grit paper, because I know once the boat was painted that it would really show up any kind of imperfections on the curve. So I spent a little bit more time on that. And with the transom sanded, that was it, finished. Well, good morning. Today I'm excited. It actually is going to be the day that we get some primer laid up on the top sides of the boat. So fingers crossed it's the end of the sanding on the top sides. We can get everything ready for painting hopefully over the weekend here, and then by hopefully this afternoon the first layer of primer on, which is exciting because it's the stage of kind of building up the boat that I wanted to be at around now. And fingers crossed I'll get maybe a couple of layers of primer on depending on the weather. It's to be nice today, but they had forecast some showers, but the weather's just been so changeable at the minute I don't know what to believe. It's coming on well. I'm happy with the progress at the moment. Like I say, fingers crossed the first layer of primer will be going on this evening or this afternoon above the waterline, and then we'll go from there. So we kept an eye on the weather forecast, which reassured us that there was going to be no rain, but as the dark clouds rolled in we weren't very convinced. So with some tarpaulin that was given to us by fellow boat owners in the yard, we constructed a kind of makeshift shelter on one side of the boat, and we carried on prepping the side there. You can see that we have used tack cloths and acetone to wipe down the side to prepare it for the first coat of primer. And then Kelly made this statement, which while it made me laugh, it felt so true.
First coat after 380,000 hours of sanding.
But it did feel really good getting the first coat of the primer on. And if anybody's wondering, the paint we used was a paint by the company PPG, and it was their Sigma Cover 280 primer that we used on this as the primer. If you watched some of the previous videos on the hatch cover, we used the same primer on it and it turned out really well, so we've went with that to do our top sides. And if you keep watching, I think you'll see that it turned out very well. So unfortunately the weather forecast was wrong. It did end up raining, but luckily we had the tarpaulin over the side, on the starboard side, where we had primed, so that protected what we had already done.
Wish me luck.
The next day the weather was better and Kelly came down to put primer on the port side and round to the transom, and that was the first layer on. So the boat's all primed. We've marked off our areas that we don't want paint on with our blue masking tape. We're about to put the first coat of the topside paint on. Kelly's going to be rolling and I'm going to be tipping. Yeah. Got that respirator?
good.
Jay's looking good. Another couple of coats. Another couple of coats and she'll be gleaming. I'll be working on my own today, so this is going to be a bit awkward and difficult to roll and tip by myself, but I'll give it a go and see. Hopefully it turns out okay. Unfortunately, we spoke too soon. I came down the following day and reapplied the second coat by myself. It was quite difficult, but I was able to roll and tip the second coat on, and as you'll see, it dried out and looked quite well. Well, that's the first side done this morning. That is really difficult doing it on your own. Let's see how she dries out. So we thought we'd put a third and final coat on, but when we came down and applied the third coat, something was wrong. The paint just didn't roll on as nice, and it wasn't tipping out smooth. It was leaving lumpy bits of paint. It had lost its glossy effect. It just turned out horrible. So we're really felt defeated after we applied the third coat. It had just seemed to undo all the good work of the previous two coats. So we were at our wits' end. We didn't know what to do. Well folks, that's it for this video. Thanks very much for taking the time to watch it. If you liked it or you got any benefit from it, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. Also consider subscribing if you haven't already. I appreciate that too. Join us next time when we try to fix the paint job, fix some repairs on the rudder and keel, apply some primer below the waterline, try to mark the waterline, and try to raise the mast, getting us one step closer to being in the water.